Tommy, can you hear me? It's working. Tommy, can you see me? Hello, I'm Lauren, your favorite low-budget full-stack developer. Welcome back to our WitnessNearMe custom plugin build series. Here is what is happening in this segment. We're resetting our block architecture after fighting our local DeepSeek model on modern React habits. In this episode, you're going to see how we clean up block.json to properly declare assets, categories, and custom editor front-end CSS files. And the exact moment DeepSeek breaks our rules by hallucinating ES6 import statements on a zero build project, and the critical error prompt adjustment we use to force the model back to raw browser global objects like wp.blocks, wp.element, using an IIFE, an immediately invoked function expression. If you're a mid-level developer or a freelancer who wants to see how to audit, steer, and debug a stubborn local AI assistant without relying on heavy Node or React toolchain, stick around. Alright, let's clear this out because we're basically going to have to start over with render PHP. Well, let's save this. We're probably going to start with block.json. This took quite a while. I probably should have broke this up, but now we have an overview, and then we can go in and refine each one of these. So we're going to start with block.json. This actually looks pretty close to what we need, just missing some pieces here. So make sure we're on block.json. Just go ahead and move this over here. Then index.js will be the next one, and then we'll finish off with render PHP. So on block.json, I'm missing something, a couple of things here. Well, we'll just take these one by one. This is looking better, but let's focus on each file for building the, what's it called, registration form block. Starting with block.json. This looks mostly correct, but I think we are missing the API version and the category to be added before the attributes property. If we can't figure it out, we're just going to add it ourselves. Form schema, maybe it should be form config. While we're waiting, we're just going to go ahead and add API version and make it, oh, come on now. Let's make this 3. This is pretty close. For category, we'll use design. We're going to put category right after title, not WNM forms. Design. We're missing some other things here. So we've got attributes, form config, type array, default. Not sure about the sanitized callback. But we do want to make a reference to the editor script and the render. So after attributes, here, we're going to add, sure, go ahead and do that. There we go. Probably will need that. But we're going to change this one. Well, let's add one more. There we go, render. Editor script, this is correct. Render looks correct. Editor and style. So if we want to add these, we're going to add them in the same directory here. So we've got index.js, we already have render PHP, but let's add editor CSS. And we're going to add, what was it, just style? Style CSS. So editor CSS is for styles in the editor for the block. Style CSS is going to be for the front end. But we don't want to use style CSS. We want to use theme.json. All right, so we're looking a little better. Again, not sure about the sanitized callback. Definitely not sure where to even define this. Supports HTML false. I'm going to get rid of this. Might have to add it back, but for now we're going to omit. Let's see if we can read the file and the updates I made. Can you read the file? And can you explain the sanitize callback? I want to use form config instead of form schema. Should we change the sanitize callback function handle? So one thing I learned recently is that continue was bought by another company. So you can still use this with a local chat, a local agent setup, but there probably won't be any more development on this particular extension. Okay, I wanted to add some notes on the continue extension because I think this is relevant and I don't want anyone running off on the wrong track. What happened to continue? In mid-June 2026, Cursor, AnySphere, acqui-hired the team behind Continue. The standalone product was officially wound down. Its GitHub repository was set to read-only under its open source Apache 2.0 license, and its cloud services were shut down. Is it worth starting with Continue today? No. If you haven't already installed it, adopting Continue today is a dead end. Because the core repository is no longer actively maintained by its creators, future API updates in VS Code or breaking changes in local inference backends will eventually break it. What are the better open source alternatives right now? If you want to jump into the local first, bring your own model workflow today, 2 major open source extensions have taken over the ecosystem. First one is Cline, an incredible open source VS Code extension that supports local OLLAMA endpoints, has strict system prompt guardrails, and natively handles complex file diffs and command executions. And the other one is Roo Code, a powerful fork of Cline that offers deep customization over agent modes, workspace indexing, and local prompt templates without locking you into a monthly subscription. I don't think it's worth reading through all of this, but basically I'm going to pause this before it scrolls because I interrupted myself. Understanding the block.json file, renaming form schema to form config, that was what I wanted. I'm going to read this so that I know. Rename the attribute from form schema to form config for clear semantics or project-specific naming conventions. Update all references to form schema in PHP and JavaScript files to use form config. So we're just kind of aligning the terminology, not really a big deal. Understanding the sanitized callback. The sanitized callback property points to a function that sanitizes the block's attributes, ensuring they adhere to expected formats. In this case, sanitized form schema likely processes the JSON schema data under form schema. Updating the sanitized callback if needed. If renaming form schema to form config, check if the sanitization function sanitized form schema needs to be updated to process data under form config. Rename the function or adjust it to handle the new attribute name if necessary. So basically it's saying if you change that name, then you're going to have to change anything that's going to reference to it, followed by updating related code. So much of what came back from this response that we're looking at right now that took 82 seconds of thinking was nearly unusable. So we're still in the middle of like the torturous part of this, but I promise it's going to get better. It's not going to get immediately wonderfully better instantly, but it's going to get continuously better. Let's move on to index.js. The code you provided is dependent on Node, but we are not using Node for our custom blocks. We should use the native global WordPress hook. No React build required. It should start with something like wp.blocks.register block type. WNM blocks, is that what I'm calling this? No, it's called WNM. Well, it's WNM forms, but we need our directory is just called blocks, so registration form. And include edit and save functions. Can you help with this? What if I put blocks in the middle of this? I don't think I need any of this. I just need this bit. Return wp.element, create element, div. We need a class name. Looks like we're going backwards a little bit, but that's okay. We got the API version and the category this time. I don't know that forms is actually a category, but we can double check that. It's still trying to import. It's a pretty good sign that this is incorrect. To create custom Gutenberg block for a registration form without using Node or React, you'll need to structure your files properly and use native WordPress functions. Here's a step-by-step guide. This we already have successfully done. This we already have. We changed our naming from schema to config, and it remembered that, so that's nice. So this is the part in the index.js. This is how we know that this agent is moving in the wrong direction. It's the import statement. When you see import, that's a bad sign. When you see import register block type from at WordPress blocks in a zero build project, that is your immediate red flag that the LLM is defaulting to training data for create block or Webpack setups, which we're not doing. That was this right here. Look at this. Name, unique identifier for the block, title, description, API version, category, attributes. Define the data associated with the block. So we have a form config and form fields. Those are both there. Now, index.js, I've got a problem with because we're importing register block type from WordPress blocks. This is a sign that something is definitely wrong. It's close, but it is still wrong. Renders the block editor, allowing users to input form field values. Defines how the block is rendered on the front end. Render PHP. This file generates HTML output of the form based on the JSON schema. This looks a little too lengthy. Let's do it this way. Well, actually, function in Q scripts. I want to add this to the main plugin file, and we're just going to add it right here. We can't test and verify yet. We're going to save this, go to index, copy this. I need a pure JavaScript, well, let's be specific, vanilla JavaScript implementation for index.js. This is what I have so far. What am I missing from this in index.js? So what's missing here is a wrapper for an immediately invoked function expression. An IIFE should be wrapping this, and it's missing quite a bit of logic for the edit and the save. So we're going to copy this, and we're going to paste it. We have a critical error. There is no build pipeline, no npm, and no bundler. This file runs as a direct raw script in the browser. You must access the WordPress block framework entirely through the native global window object, wp.blocks, wp.element, and wp components. Rewrite index.js completely as a self-contained, immediately invoked function expression using raw window assignments. So this is literally where I left off. I have untracked changes, all these files. I mean, because nothing in here is worth pushing to the remote yet. But we did get back something to indicate that we're finally moving in the right direction. So I think the trick really was changing the tone, yelling at it a little bit, critical error, and then using some very specific language. Do not use ES6 or CommonJS require syntax. So let's read through what it responded with finally. To address the issue of using ES6 import statements or CommonJS in a Gutenberg block file, that runs directly in the browser will rewrite the index.js file as an immediately invoked function expression without any module bundler dependencies. This approach ensures WordPress functions are accessed globally. Understand the problem. The current index.js uses ES6 imports or common JS syntax, which isn't compatible with environments lacking a build pipeline or module bundler. WordPress functions like wp.blocks, wp.element, etc. are accessible as global variables in the browser. Convert to IIFE. Encapsulate the block registration code within an IIFE to keep it self-contained and prevent global variable conflicts. Remove imports. Since we're using a direct script, eliminate all import statements and access WordPress functions directly from the global scope. Access global variables. Reference wp.blocks, wp.element, and other WordPress components directly without a module system. Rewrite the code. Transform the existing code into an IIFE structure, ensuring it runs immediately upon loading. So how we know this is correct, see how we have import statements here, but here we start with an immediately invoked. How do we know it's immediately invoked? Because the function part is in parentheses. If we look down at the bottom, it closes with this, which basically says run that function. It runs everything that's inside of these parentheses. Kind of awkward, I guess, but it works. It's not something I use a lot, so that's why it's awkward to me. Explanation of changes. IIFE structure. The entire block registration logic is encapsulated within an immediately invoked function to keep it self-contained. Oh, man, I guess this has to be like super wide. I don't know. Global WordPress functions. All functions like wp.blocks, wp.element are accessed directly from the global scope without any module imports. Attributes and state management. The form config and form fields attributes handle dynamic form field configurations. Update form field function ensures real-time updates in the editor. We could probably do without that, but if it works, then we'll keep it. If it's buggy, we're going to remove it because I don't think we're going to need real-time updates in the editor. We just want the block to render. We only care about it rendering on the front end. So in the WordPress editor, what we care about is being able to make any configuration changes that we might need. I won't even begin to speculate on what those could be. Well, yeah, I will. So let's say we create this block for a form. Now we have one form that we can pop onto the page. And at this stage in the game, we only really need one form. But let's say we get further into the project and we need a different form with slightly different fields. So this is where our form config comes into play. We could easily add new fields here in this array. And then in the editor, we would want to be able to say, turn this field on, turn this field off, etc. And we're already wired to do that. Visible true, visible true. So if we want to make it not visible, where are we going to do that? Do we want to go into the code? We're not going into the code to do it. It's got to be inside WordPress. So we need some kind of interface for that. And right now I'm thinking that interface is going to be in the block inspector controls. So that would be over on the side. Moving on. I forgot where I left off here. Oh yeah, real-time updates in the editor. Alright, edit and save functions. Both functions render form fields based on form config, with the edit function allowing live input changes and the save function, we're just talking about that, save function rendering a read-only version for front-end display. This approach ensures that the block runs smoothly without any build tools, adhering to the constraints of a direct browser environment. So we are on the right path. Now we can take this, copy it, Now we have a new one. Do we have errors in here? No, it's just red. Okay, so for this video, I think that that should suffice. So before we do any more prompting or any more chatting with the agent, any more attempts at developing, building this out, we're going to make some changes in how we interact with the agent. Change number 1. We're going to learn how to reference the spec sheet using the @ symbol. Change number 2. We're going to learn when to use @workspace versus single files. Three, the inline editing shortcut, Cmd+I. We're going to learn about that. And these things I think are going to help get us on a better track. Well, it's going to help the agent know what we're talking about, which file or files we're talking about, and there's just going to be more cohesiveness between what's going on in the chat and what's going on in the files, because right now it seems disconnected, so we want to fix that. Alright, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you. See you in the next one. Promise it's going to get better.